Alright, so today we are going to have a lecture on inheritance and genes and pedigrees, and we're going to start out with something called sex-linked genes. So sex-linked genes are those genes that are on your sex chromosomes. And your sex chromosomes, they determine what sex you are, but they also tell you a lot of other things. So they tell you things, or like the things they tell you, those are called sex-linked genes. So those are found on the X and Y chromosome, and they are passed through the X and Y chromosomes. So there aren't very many traits found on the Y chromosome, so when we talk about sex-linked genes, we are assuming that we are talking about genes on the X chromosome. And since males only have one X chromosome, they are affected more often when a defect is found on the X chromosome. They only have one X, so if there's a bad X chromosome, there's nothing to make up for it. They just have the one X chromosome, and that's the one they end up with. There's no like backup copy. So examples of this are like hemophilia and color blindness, and then also muscular dystrophy. So here's a picture to represent this. So if your mother is a carrier is a person that has that trait but is not expressing that trait. So she has that extra X copy that she's not going to express the defective trait. But if she has a male, he only gets one copy of her X chromosomes, and then the other sex chromosome comes from the dad. So the male, half of the males that are born from this couple will have this disorder, whatever this disorder is. And the females that are born from this couple, half of them will be carriers. So you'll end up, out of 4 children, you could have a normal male, a normal female, an affected male, or a carrier female. But only one of their 4 children will actually be affected by this disorder, whatever this is. So for example, color blindness is a sex-linked gene found on the X chromosome. So in this case, we use the X, and then we give it a superscript capital C for normal color vision, and a lowercase superscript c for colorblind. And normal color vision is dominant over color blindness. So if a woman who is a carrier, someone who carries the allele but doesn't express the trait of the colorblind gene, and if she has children with a man who is not colorblind, is it possible to have colorblind children? So let's make a Punnett square out of this. The mother's genotype is going to be X with a capital C superscript and then a lowercase c, so she is not actually colorblind, but she has the trait to pass on. And the dad's genotype is a colorblind man. No, sorry, he's not colorblind, so that's a capital C and then a Y. So let's draw our Punnett square. So we're just going to do this right on the side. So this is just your typical monohybrid cross. So we're going to have 4 squares, and we're going to split our genotypes into gametes. So for the mother, we're going to put her on the side. We're going to have an X and a capital C, and then also an X and a lowercase c. So remember that lowercase c is for color blindness. For the male, we're going to have an X and a capital C because he is not colorblind, and a Y. Okay, so let's look at the children they have. First, we cross and we get the X, capital C, X, capital C. Okay, the next cross, we have an X, capital C, and a Y. The next one, we have an X, capital C, X, lowercase c. So this is a female that is a carrier. And then we also have X, lowercase c, Y. So in this offspring here, we'll see colorblind males. This here, she's a carrier. So here's some examples of color blindness tests. What they do is they put just bubbles that you wouldn't be able to see those numbers if you were colorblind. Here's a red-green color blindness test. So some people are only colorblind to specific colors, so like red or green, or purple or blue or whatever color it is. Okay, so those are sex linked traits. We also have sex influence traits. So in a sex influence traits, these are traits that are influenced by sex. They're not like necessarily carried on the X and Y chromosome, they're just influenced. So if a male has one recessive allele, he will show that trait. But if the female has two recessive alleles, that's when she shows the trait. So in this case, like dominance is expressed differently between the males and females. So for example, baldness. The allele for baldness in males is dominant, but in females it is recessive. So big B, and big B, little b will be bald for males, but not for females. And little b will be bald for females, but not for males. So just kind of different expression of those genes. So remember, things in blue we're not going to write down, but androgen receptors. Androgens are hormones that are sex-related. Androgen receptors on the scalp are more common in men, which results in a greater influence on hair follicles from testosterone. And these effects are additive, so the more factors you have, the greater your chance of going bald. So some people bald a little bit, some people bald a lot, some people bald early, some people bald later in life, and it's dependent on the actual genes and factors you have. We're going to skip that one. Okay, polygenic inheritance. So polygenic inheritance is when two or more genes affect a single characteristic. Poly, many. But so for example, height, skin color, and eye color. So when we talk about how tall something is, we don't just have like short, medium, and tall people. We have a variety of heights. We have, people that are 4'11", 5 foot, 5'1", 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", all the way up to like 6'9". But they have a variety of heights which run along the spectrum. And there are all of these different genes on these chromosomes that code for height. All of these genes. So there's all of these different chromosomes. Every single chromosome has a gene that affects height. So that's polygenic inheritance. We also have multiple allele inheritance. So rather than many genes affecting inheritance, we have more than two alleles that affect the phenotype. So we've talked about like dominant and recessive alleles. In some cases, we have multiple alleles that affect a trait, so more than just two alleles. So for example, there are 4 blood types in humans: A, B, and O. A and B are codominant, and they're expressed in blood at the same time. O, though, is recessive to A and B, and you need both genes to have the allele O for the O blood type. So in order to express O blood type, you have to have both recessive O alleles. So different blood types. So what would be the phenotypes of these? I with a capital A, we use that for the A blood type. I with a capital B is for the B blood type, and a little I, that's for the O blood type. So the genotypes for A. Sorry, when I say phenotypes at the top here, I mean what are the alleles? What are the alleles? Let's make an edit right now. Alleles. Okay. So the alleles, what are the genotypes? A, for the genotypes, we could have I with a capital A, I with a capital A. We could have I with a capital A and a lowercase I, which is representative of O. So that lowercase I is recessive, so we don't see that O being expressed. For B, it's very similar to A. We have 2 B alleles, or a B allele and an O allele. For AB, you have an A and a B allele. And for O, you have to have 2 little i's. Okay, so let's practice with our Punnett squares. So we're going to cross a homozygous individual with blood type A with a heterozygous individual for blood type B. So that's our first Punnett square. We're going to have, so maybe pause it here, try doing this on your own, and then you can come back and check your answers. So for our type A person, we have I, A, our type B heterozygous, we have I, B, and the lowercase I for O. So that person has a recessive O allele, but does not express it because it is, oops, that is an O. It's an I. Okay, so that does not express the O allele because they only have one. So the first offspring will have IA and IB. The second offspring will be IA, IB. So we're going to end up with two individuals that are AB blood type. The third individual will be IA and an O allele. And so that person shows that offspring shows the A blood type. Third person is fourth person is IA, lowercase I. So that offspring also shows the O blood type. Alright, cross an individual with blood type O with an individual with blood type AB. So in this case, we're going to make another Punnett square. We're going to have an I, lowercase I, and then I capital A, and I capital B. Okay, so we have an I capital A, lowercase I. So that individual, that offspring, is A blood type. We have I capital A, lowercase I. That individual is also an A blood type. Then we have IB, lowercase I, IB, lowercase I. So two individuals will be A blood type, two individuals will be B blood type. I'm going to stop our recording here.